Hello and welcome back, episode 3, season 2, Ecuador Insider Podcast, joined as always by Carl Marsan, Ryan Pemberton. I'm Jesse Bayer. We are Abundant Living Ecuador, at least the podcast face of Abundant Living Ecuador. Cool show for you today. We actually prepared a little bit. So we've got basically a top 10 list, basically what we love about Ecuador. And we're going to run through the list. We're going to talk about it. We're going to try to give you guys some color as far as life here. We've been here many years collectively. I think we said 22 or 25 years or something that we've been here, the three of us. We've integrated. We've really run the gamut of activities here, and we happen to love it. So we're gonna give you our top 10 list. So welcome back. Thanks for being with us. Great to see you guys today, and let's do it. So. Number one, and this is really not in any particular order, but number one is the climate. I mean, the climate here is just spectacular.
It's number one, really, for me at least.
For you, it's number.
Yeah, it's number one for me.
Yeah, and no winter, year-round growing season, and depending on where you are, you can have just kind of like mid-70s to low 80s year-round. That's where we live. We're in the Vilcabamba area. That's where we live, mid-70s, low 80s as far as your daytime high year-round. There's other towns like that all over the country. Climate is controlled mostly by elevation, so you can kind of pick and choose your climate. You can pick and choose your humidity, but regardless, you're not dealing with winter, and you've got a lot of sunny days here as well. Mm-hmm. All right, number 2, the culture. This is really for me like. It's up there for me. I love the culture in the States also, but when we talk about the differences, it's like the States is a very transactional society. It's sort of like people relate to each other kind of based on what they can do for one another. Time is money. I think it's kind of lost its heart in a certain way. Not that there isn't amazing communities and amazing people, there are, but it doesn't have that same humanity it maybe once had when you're relating to people. Ecuador is the opposite of that. So Ecuador, time is not money here. You can use professionals' time sort of in a limitless way. There's sort of a banter even in business meetings. You might spend 15, 20 minutes, just chatting before the meeting. Lawyers, accountants, professionals, engineers don't charge by their time. They charge by the job. So they're not worried about spending 30 minutes on the phone or whatever. You're not getting charged for that, and you see sort of kindness that comes with that. People are happy to like pitch in and spend an afternoon helping you do something, or carrying somebody's groceries home, or whatever it is. People are not uptight about their time. They're not worried about their time. Extremely family oriented, so it's like families take care of each other. You might find 3 or 4 generations in the same house. Yeah. Holidays, parties, everybody's getting together all the time. Sunday's like family day in Ecuador, right. Where pretty much it's almost expected that you're going to be hanging out with your parents or your in-laws or all of the above and your kids and kind of doing Sunday together. Mm-hmm. I'm talking too much. What do you guys? Culture?
Yeah, sure. So culture. So in Ecuador, even with the expat community here in Vilcabamba specifically, you can actually hang out with people on short notice. So back in the States, my wife and I would, have to pencil in time with friends 2-3 weeks out because everybody's so busy. Here, you can say, hey, do you want to hang out tonight? And it's like, yeah, let's do it. Or how about tomorrow night? Let's do dinner. And people show up and they're on time sometimes, I guess.
Well, you were talking about the expats partly.
Yeah, expats partly on time. Ecuadorians culturally don't necessarily value being on time like they do in the States. So that's one thing that you'll notice if you move here is they'll call it Ecuadorian time. And that just means if someone says they'll be there at 5, you can show up at 5:30 and probably still be earlier than them and still be good. But yeah, with the expat community, if you determine that you want to be somewhere at a specific time, just tell them like sharp, and they get it. So, but
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, about being on time. I mean, there's even a saying in Ecuador. They call it La Hora Lojana. It's like the Loja time. It's even later than the Ecuadorian time in general. So definitely expect people to be late. In general, in general, the culture is like that. But yeah, as you know, that's more my style in a sense, like doing things off the cuff and improvising, being able to be fluid. I would say, yeah, definitely flexible. The culture here is like that for sure. People will give you really short notice. For example, for us, we're in real estate. You might get a call the same day. Hey, can I see this property now? In 10 minutes. I'm arriving 15 minutes from now. Are you ready? Like these kinds of things happen very often, which it's kind of nice. It works out. I mean, sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, I like it.
Takes the pressure off too. It's like you don't have to stress. If you're late, it's fine. If you can't make it and you got to cancel something, nobody cares. There isn't that pressure of like, oh my gosh, if I don't get there this time, this person's gonna be worried of you don't have any of that. Again, time is not money. I really like that. It also good.
I was gonna say, I'll interject there. It's like I still feel that anxiety when I'm late for things here, even though I know I'm probably gonna be fine. I come from like corporate sales in America where you got to be punctual. And if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. That kind of a concept. And here, it's just taken a while for me to get used to. If I'm running like 2 minutes behind, or I'll be there 3 or 4 minutes late, I'm like, oh man, this isn't good, And you just have to remind yourself, yeah, you're probably going to be all right. And then I find it time and time again, I'm still there before them. Like almost every time, even if I'm 15, 20 minutes late.
Sure.
Yeah, all right.
And there are a lot of people who show up on time as well, and I think we're maybe overstating somewhat. But yeah, there's a lot of people who don't. It's very culturally acceptable to not. I'm really a big fan of the informality here. Like in a certain sense, this area, like the mountain culture, is very formal in the sense that it's like good morning, good afternoon, good evening, buen provecho. This kind of like rigmarole when you meet somebody. In a certain way, it's very formal, and people are pretty conservative in that way in the mountains. But in other ways, it's such an informal society where, if you're in a store and you don't have enough money, they'll say, just come back tomorrow or come back in an hour. If you have to sign paperwork or whatever you have to do, really, there's just an informality about life here that I really appreciate. It's not a dot the I's and cross the T's, culture. That plays out good and bad, of course, but there's really nice sides to that just as far as, living your life. And people take care of their own. There's no homelessness in Ecuador. There's nobody starving in Ecuador. And that'll, we'll get into some of that stuff in other topics, but it sort of just gets back to that very sort of human culture where, if somebody, families take care of one another, nobody's out on the street, starving. If they can't work, they're living with mom or, something like that. Yeah, let's see. I think that. Oh, well, one thing I had put on the list was there's a power that people have that I don't experience elsewhere. In the States, if you're unhappy with government, you have to like vote harder, or call your congressman. There's not really much you can actually do. Try and start a social movement or something. Whereas in Ecuador, when the government gets out of line, people step up to the plate. Like people are like, this is going to stop, and everyone kind of rises up. And the first time I saw that, I was so shocked to see that, wait, people can actually change the government's actions like on the spot because enough people got upset and didn't like it. That's cool for me.
Well, yeah, my wife and I went on a weekend trip to Cuenca this last weekend, and the road in Saraguro was blocked off by the indigenous. They decided because their front-runner candidate for presidency didn't get his revote count, or they wanted
the recount,
a revote, that kind of a thing, and the government's just like, no, we're gonna move on without doing that. So they're standing up to that by blocking off the road for hours on end and burning tires across the road so that you can't get by, moving rocks into the road. And that's a main thoroughway throughout the country. So they do those types of things, and ultimately sometimes they get their way.
Yeah, an example of when they got their way is when the government was trying to raise the price of oil, gasoline, and diesel, and get away with the subsidies. And people protested all over the country. And a couple of weeks later, basically the government dropped it off, and the price of gas is remain the same.
Right.
Same thing happened some years back with inheritance taxes as well. And again, I don't always agree with the things people are protesting, but I still like the fact that they have that power to potentially affect change by by getting together and doing something about it. Not something I was used to coming from back home. One of the things that I really appreciate about Ecuador are the opportunities, the business and sort of entrepreneurial opportunities. I was doing business in New York City before I was here. You have so much competition for anything you're doing. There's so much capital. There's investment capital from all over the world. There's business people and entrepreneurs from all over the world. All that capital is chasing the same sort of finite set of opportunities. In Ecuador, it's not an entrepreneurial culture. If you look at the history of the country, which I don't want to run through, but it kind of goes back to favoritism as far as how you got ahead. Marriage, relationships, friends, that's sort of how you were able to get ahead here. So people don't really have the mentality like they do in the States, certainly, that it's like, go out and make it happen. And so as a result of that, not that people don't work really hard, they do, and not that there isn't some entrepreneurial spirit here, there is, but it's much less. And as a result of that, there's, I could rattle off 10, 20, 30 businesses that could be successful here that you'd have almost no competition in. And in my world, in the real estate investment world, as well, you can find really undervalued properties that you have no competition to buy. I really appreciate that about here.
Yeah. I have a couple examples for myself. When I first arrived here, I had some savings. Eventually they ran out and I had to find a way to make money. So I created this small little business making homemade chocolates and energy bars and different food items.
They're delicious.
Yeah, and I lived. Me and my family lived on that, for years. Living down here, we could make it happen without getting any permits, without getting any, anything official, just by selling in the health food stores around here and different cities in Ecuador, and very easily we did that. I also started importing CBD oil and reselling CBD oil down here, and I still have that small business and just an extra stream of income. And same thing, like you can do things without getting all the permits and paying the government fee,
Why don't you talk
etc.
about the recent legislation for CBD?
Yeah, medical marijuana is now legalized in Ecuador, and they're going to start promoting the growth of especially hemp. So it's really actually hemp mostly, which is high in CBD and doesn't have the hallucinogenic or psychoactive effects.
Yeah, I think THC is still
It's
illegal.
still 0.1% or 1%, something like that. It's a low amount of THC.
Sure.
But the Ecuadorian government is starting to promote agricultural projects for growing hemp in Ecuador, which I think would be really good because agricultural land is cheap, productive, fertile, and
it's a good investment opportunity for somebody right now, for sure, to get in early.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, people in the States who got in early on the legal, what it was, medical or whatever, however they legalized state by state, did very well. And I think we're at that sort of first mover moment here now.
Yeah.
Literally, did this law actually pass now? Because I've been reading. Yeah, so like last week or something, or
it's in January, I believe.
in January. Okay. Oh, okay. So what they were talking about that at that time actually made it through Congress. I didn't even realize that. Cool. So it's still, it's still an infant industry, to say the least.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing I would point out is, like, Jesse was talking about multiple business ideas. Just one thing when you come here, if you want to start a business, is just looking at there's so many things here are either unavailable or really hard to find, things that you could find easily in the United States, like food products or different things like that. And just importing things that don't exist here, that the foreigner market especially, there's a lot of people that are looking for certain products. They're just not available here. Like, you can't find a lot of things. Yeah.
Body care, cosmetics, different stuff like
Supplements,
Supplements,
all
right.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool. So number 4 is the nature. Oh my gosh, this is just, it's too good. Like, it's almost too good. It's hard to imagine sometimes. I was down in Zumba the other day. It was just, look behind us. It's lusher than here. Like, it's more lush than here. But in general, there's the streams and rivers and soil and wildlife and the air quality and all of it is just, it's just A+. I don't think you can get better than this as far as the nature and the different opportunities for nature activities. But just in general, you're walking around. We end up walking around properties and being out a lot on different pieces of land. And almost 8 years later, I'm still blown away, all the time by when you're looking out over these mountaintops, or you're, bathing in a river, or you're, drinking out of a stream, or, whatever it is. It's just incredible. Rich black soil in many places, just absolutely magnificent in nature.
Mm-hmm. For sure. The rivers, the waterfalls, lakes up in the mountains. There's a lot of places too that nobody knows about. Like, some local people might be like, hey, this is a cool spot that you can go to. You have to hike a couple hours maybe, but that's really cool to discover new places. Like, honestly, every week now I discover new places, these amazing, beautiful natural places that,
Yeah, you can take and find really random spots if you're willing to go with your four-wheel drive vehicle on random roads, and you can find some really cool spots.
Yeah.
And also, most Ecuadorians, I would say most all of them, are okay if you're on their land. So if you find yourself wanting to go hike somewhere, you can just enter through their gate and go, walk and zigzag up to the ridge. And, if you see the owner, if you see a person and you're, friendly, like, hey, buenos dias, they're happy to talk with you. And as a general rule, they don't get upset if you're entering their private property because you want to go on a little hike. So a lot of exploration to do here.
Yeah.
And that goes back to just like, people just have good hearts here. People are generally speaking not angry. People are pretty content, pretty happy in general with who they are, with their life, or whatever you want to say. I really have grown to appreciate the expat community here in Vilcabamba. Now, there's others, of course, around the country, and they do vary. Like, there's some places where it's mostly retirees, and other places where it's mostly, I guess mostly retirees in a few places, actually. Vilcabamba is probably one of the few that is a broad spectrum mix of expats. Cuenca would have young people as well, but it would be more geared towards retirees. Same with the coast. But the Vilcabamba community in the last, year or so, I have really come to appreciate. There's just so many cool people here doing cool stuff. People I relate to, people who care about each other and come together when there's issues. I mean, there was a friend whose, husband had some medical issues recently, and I think the community raised like $9,000 in a week or something for a surgery. And think that's a very common type story here. People are very into health. They're very into sort of spirituality in a certain sense. Not everybody, of course, but there's a strong sort of spiritual component for people. A lot of people living here. There's just a lot of good people, and a lot of people who are out of the matrix, so to speak. Are just kind of have a degree of freedom and of free thinking and just good people. I really appreciate that at this point.
Yeah, and we all have something in common. We're all foreigners in a foreign land, so we relate to each other just on that level, right? And there's definitely a lot of, it's a good community. People are helping each other out, like Jesse mentioned, with fundraisers and stuff like that. And there's something else I wanted to say. Yeah, we have so many friends here. Like, we're really attached to the community, and I think you will too when you come here. Like, it's easy to fit in. People are very accepting and kind.
Yeah, a diverse age range of people, I think, is what we're getting at, whether you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and then the retiree folks. There really are a wide range of people here to befriend and go hang out and have a good community.
Yep, for sure. Another thing, number 6 on the list. There's always a solution. There's always a way to get it done. I love that about this country. Again, this also kind of goes back to the culture and the informality. But Ecuador has a lot of bureaucracy, right? It's a Latin American country. It's not light on bureaucracy. That's probably that probably is my least favorite thing about Ecuador, is the layers of bureaucracy. But fortunately, unlike the U.S., for example, in the U.S., if there's a rule that says to get, XYZ permission, there's a 6-month waiting period. There's a 6-month waiting period. You're not getting around that. Here, there's always a solution. There's always a way to get it done. There's always an angle. There's always a side door, you can go through. And, some people might not like that. Some people might say, like, oh, I want everything by the book, and I want to, cool. Like, I get that too. There is advantages to that. But I personally really appreciate the fact that when I'm trying to accomplish something, there is always a way to do it. There's always someone you can speak to. There's always a friend of a friend. A lot of it goes back again into that person-to-person sort of culture and business culture, but culture in general. Everything is done through relationships, through, for me, like the first, I don't know if you guys had this similar experience. For me, my first year to 2 years being here, the doors were closed. Like I couldn't get anything done. I didn't know a lot of people. I didn't speak the language, and it was like no, everything I was trying to accomplish. Once I integrated and I knew everybody and I spoke the language, all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, you can do anything here.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about Ecuador.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I would say like one of the things that comes to mind is like some people might not necessarily like that, but there is a little bit of bribery going on, and I would say like probably corruption is worldwide. Like even in Western countries, it's just you got to pay millions of dollars in Western world, whereas here it might be $20, for a police officer to just let you off the hook or something like that, right? So there's certain times you can use that in your favor here.
Real quick on that note, when driving around, they do roadblocks in Ecuador. So they actually don't pull you over as a general rule here. The police drive around with their lights on, and they'll be behind you. And for anyone who's been pulled over in the States, like your heart sinks. You're like, this sucks. And you have to go through the whole thing and license and registration, please.
Papers, please.
It's like you literally can have nightmares about it. But here, no, they'll roll around with their lights on, and they won't be pulling you over. It's just what they do. But they have these traffic stops, and they check your registration and your license at these places. And for whatever reason, they find something like maybe your tire also, your tires are getting worn down. They'll kind of point it out, and all of a sudden, at one point, they were doing this to me, and I was like, oh, wow, and I just said, I don't speak Spanish, in English the whole time. And
that's an effective strategy.
Yeah, it is. Like, don't speak Spanish, right? And so then they had the big head honcho come over, and he's doing the same thing, giving me
This was for your tires?
This was for the tires, right? Because it's a pretty serious thing, you don't want your tire to blow out and get into an accident with somebody else and cause injury. But my tires were fine, by the way, by anyone else's standards. And after about 25-30 minutes, they finally just let me go. But what if I had $20? Could I have gotten out of that situation a little earlier? Maybe. I think perhaps.
Sure. No doubt about it.
The thing they were looking for was money. And so you could find yourself in similar situations to that here. But like Carl was saying, it's not going to be ultra expensive.
Yeah, and in a way, it feels like the police here is more like part of the people. There's still, not that the police in the Western world is not part of the people, but they feel like they're in their own category, like they're upholding the law. Whereas here, like they're just someone's uncle and someone's friend and someone's dad, And so we've had times where we actually told the police officer, like, my wife is pregnant, or we're going to the hospital, and they're just like, okay, go through, Whereas I don't know if that would work in the U.S., right. But here people are a little more relatable in that way. Like they look at it from your perspective. Yeah.
No, that's a great point. And the police and military, because the military is used domestically for things, something we're not used to back home. The police and military, they're beholden to the community. They really are. And so that sort of goes back to when we were talking about the culture and people having power. Part of the reason people have power is because nobody can order the police and military to do like horrible things, because they won't do it. Yeah. And so even if some higher up wanted the response to be violent or wanted the response to be sort of over the top, they would have a very hard time getting those orders enacted. Which is pretty cool. And jumping back for a second into this sort of police issue, because I think probably coming from where we come from, that's strange. That's a different animal. But yeah, so it is different here. But yeah, so you can pretty much get out of anything for anywhere from a few dollars if it's the coast to about $20 if it's the mountains. Bribes and corruption are much more common on the coast as well. I mean, I've lived here again almost 8 years. I think I've bribed someone in the mountains once. So and that was a police officer one time. And that includes like a municipio I've never had to bribe. But I've never bribed really anyone. One time I paid a bribe in the mountains.
I didn't know that. I was on the coast with that tire story.
Yeah, so on the coast it's commonplace. So I mean, just in my little bit of traveling to the coast, once a year, once every couple of years I go to the coast. I mean, I've probably paid 5 or 10 bribes on the coast. Mostly, yeah, for stupid stuff. But they if they're harassing you and they're acting all tough, they just want money, and a simple few dollars will get you out of it. But it's not over the top. It's not like they're stopping you and just extracting money from you. Not at all. It's like they have to find something that is illegal, that is wrong, and then you have to illegal. Let me stick with illegal. They have to find something that's illegal. And then you go through the negotiation. Even if you don't speak Spanish, you can still sort that out. And it's so commonplace that it's like it's not something you have to like really concern yourself with as like being really careful about it. You can basically just negotiate with the guy. Like I've had a situation where I handed a guy $5 and he looked at me and I'm like, all right, I gave him 5 more. You know. Also, again on the coast. But.
Yeah. It is what it is. I mean, yeah. Most of South America or Latin America would probably consider that, including Mexico, Guatemala. Like there is more, outward corruption that you can see, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. No, I had just real quick. I had another funny story where we're driving. I had this old like beat up Land Cruiser, and we're on the coast, and the seat belts in the back like don't work, and so the back seat is not buckled up. And the cop on his little like putt motorcycle sees it and pulls me over. And so I grab like, or I think my wife actually grabbed, I don't remember. We had coins. We had like a bunch of coins to give him, like dollar coins, maybe $10 or something in coins. And we're standing on the side of the highway, like a 4 or 5 lane highway leading into Guayaquil. And we hand him the coins and they fall. And they're splatter all over the road. He didn't even, he wasn't even like worried about it. He wasn't even like, oh my gosh, now I'm going to get caught. He just like waited for us to pick them up and hand it to him. It was really fun. So number 7, quality. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Well, please. One tip that I would have like in general, for me at least, I thought that it's always worked is like the local police. I always say hi to them. I always salute them. I always like, I don't like try to hide or whatever. Like they know me, I know them, then and I think like they probably don't bother you in that way. Like if they think they know you somehow, and they think you don't have anything to hide, right? Like so, there have been people here living here without a visa. And when I first got here, I admit for 1 year I didn't have a visa. I overstayed my visa.
Oh man!
Eventually, I got a residency visa afterwards. But you worry like the migration. They're gonna try to deport you. I've never heard of anyone getting deported.
No, they don't
the
deport
whole time
anyone.
I've been here.
No.
Yeah. And I was just like, let's say hi to all the police officers and all the immigration police, because then they don't think I have anything to hide. And nobody ever asked me if I had a visa or not during this whole time. So I think it's a good trick.
No, again, it goes back to the relationships, right? Yeah. I mean, I have a friend who's in the cattle business and drives all over the country picking up cattle. He brings water, and like whether he knows the cops are, hands them some water. Hey, how's it going? And they're friends, and that's just how it works. And it's like once you know their face, they know your face. It's like you're a family member,
That's true. That's true. And they do like foreigners, I think.
Totally.
Just in culture in general, like you can be treated a little bit better, especially if you speak the language and you're a foreigner. They respect us. In general.
No doubt. It's like we're like a novelty, but a good novelty. It's like oh cool, like and they want to talk and like get to know you and say their 10 English words and, and do that whole thing.
And we're good for the economy. Like we have to tell the truth.
Sure.
Like it's great for them for that. We're here. We're bringing money from the outside. It's good for tourism. We're helping the businesses, giving jobs to people. So
no doubt,
it's good. Yeah.
So people are grateful for that in a certain way.
Yeah,
definitely. Number 7, quality of the food. Now, caveat: I'm not talking about the restaurants. There is good food at restaurants in Ecuador. especially in the large cities, and on the coast. So the food on the coast is really good. And this is, of course, perspective and opinion. I'm just giving mine. But the food on the coast is really good. The food in Guayaquil, for example, there's phenomenal world-class, restaurants in Guayaquil. There's good food in Quito. There's a few good places in Cuenca. Outside of that, I'm not a huge fan of the restaurant food here. Most of it's fine. Most of it's okay. But it's, your options are limited and your quality, I would argue, is not as good as back home.
Yeah, it just depends on where you come from and how many options you have. Because there are a few good places to eat. I'll even shout out the United Falafel Organization in Vilcabamba, otherwise known as the UFO. Amazing, Turkish food, and yeah, definitely go there when you come here. And there are other restaurants that are coming onto the scene in Vilcabamba as more people are moving here, and so we're hoping that changes where there's just a ton of great restaurants. But yeah, I guess nothing.
No, and
that
you're right.
to the coast
No, please continue.
or Quito or Cuenca or whatever. But
For Vilcabamba, which has 6,000 or 7,000 people, the amount of restaurants and different restaurants that you'd find anywhere else, and especially in rural land in Ecuador, rural areas, there's so much available. I actually was told yesterday there was a report there are 50 restaurants in Vilcabamba, which might not sound like a lot, but for a small town, it is a good amount of restaurants. Yeah.
No, and I should have mentioned that Vilcabamba is squarely on that list of good food in Ecuador. There's a lot of options, international options, but the what I really love is just the quality of the ingredients that you have access to.
Yeah.
The fruits are. I've probably had 20 different kinds of fruits that I had never heard of or seen in my life prior to getting here, and pretty much all of them are delicious. So the fruits are just incredible. They're obviously very inexpensive. Coming from the States, it's if you want to have a fruit juice, you think of that as almost like a luxury item. It's you're going to spend $8 or $12 or something at some smoothie place or juice bar or something to get a smoothie or a juice. Here it's $1, $1.50. Maybe 3 or 4 different fruits that you're putting in it, and just incredible quality. And then the produce also. The produce to me is there's a lady in there's more than one, but there's several places in Vilcabamba, for example, where they grow organic produce. You can just go there and point to what you want, and I'll take some of that. They cut it out of the ground, hand it to you. You go home and cook it. It couldn't be better in that way.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one unique thing about Vilcabamba is there's an organic market every Saturday. Where organic producers, they have an association, and people go and visit farms to verify that it's actually organic, because people can just say it's organic without it really being. But the Saturday market is definitely organic, and it's very unique. You don't find that most places.
Yeah, a few different tiendas or little stores in Vilcabamba also carry organic produce during the week if you're not able to make it on Saturdays, and yeah, it's a pretty good culture in that regard, having the clean food. Of course, the water's clean coming out of the Podocarpus and all of the different canals that come into the city, so it's good water that feeds all of the different plants, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, and just as Jesse said, the fruits, really amazing. Honestly, some of the best fruits in the world. All year round, you can have all sorts of yummy fruits available.
What's your favorite?
I love the mangoes. The Edwards is the name of the variety. They're the best mangoes ever, really, and they don't have any fibers. I've never had those in Canada. I don't know if you can find them in the US.
Are those the ones that come from the coast and they're very soft and they have it's meat, very meaty?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, those are incredible.
They're super sweet and no fiber. They melt in your mouth. And avocados, you can get 4 avocados for $1. Back home it's $3 for an avocado.
Yeah.
And they're usually bad, whereas here,
And a lot of this stuff is organic too.
Yeah, that's true.
There's some things. It's not that Ecuador doesn't use pesticides; they do, but there's a lot of fruits that just don't need them at all, and so it's just organic by accident.
Right.
And then there's in this area there's a lot of organic produce producers as well.
Yeah.
What's your favorite fruit?
I knew I was thinking you were gonna ask me after, and I don't know the name of it. It's that red one that has the spikes all over it. And it only shows up for a period, at least.
Is it
in
a
this
lychee
region.
type thing?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I love that one. It has a white meat inside. It's very sweet, and then a pit inside of that, and you just kind of suck off and gnaw off
the name of it is.
the meat. But yeah, I don't know the name.
I forget the name too.
We call it red fruit in my family. My daughter, but yeah.
Is it achotillo?
No, not no.
I don't know what
achiote.
achotillo is.
No, that's like a color. Oh, is that a different one?
Achiote is the red stuff.
Yeah.
Achotillo, I think, is that
Oh,
fruit.
okay. It might be then.
Achotillo.
It might be then because it's very similar looking to
Yeah.
achiote. So, yeah, it absolutely might be. That's probably it.
Yeah, achotillo, yeah. Pretty good.
That's probably that. And I like the guavas, like the long green
Oh, nice.
guavas that
Cotton candy.
The cotton candy. Yeah,
Cotton candy
exactly.
fruit.
Yeah.
What about you, Ryan?
So my new fruit is a taxo.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that one is either. What is that?
Yeah, no, I mean you gotta look it up. I don't even know how you spell it. Tax, I think.
Maybe.
Something like that. I don't know, it's a yellow fruit. It kind of looks like a small little banana, and then you kind of peel it, and it's like this jelly. They're like jelly and seeds.
It's like a passion fruit inside, like a
Yeah.
maracuya, but it kind of sticks together. Like,
Okay.
but
Is it
it's
like
in
a
the same
similar
family, I'm sure.
texture to like a dragon fruit as with the seeds and the meat? or
No, it's like super slimy.
Okay.
It's really interesting. And the way that it chews, I guess, is the texture is really phenomenal in my opinion. I don't know if everybody would like it, but there's so much fruit down here to choose from, and you can find a favorite pretty quick. And then once you get sick of it, you'll find a new one.
Yeah, the pineapples are amazing.
Really good.
Sour sop,
Yeah.
guanabanas, super good. I love those.
Yeah.
You could even get jackfruit sometimes.
Yep.
It's kind of rare, but you can find it.
Well, and some people grow it also and just
Uh-huh.
have their personal supply. Yeah.
Good.
Number 8, cost of living. That is a huge bonus. You can't get through a video about Ecuador and not talk about cost of living. I mean, it's just cheap to live here. And, again, do I think you should move here because it's cheap to live? No. But it's a huge perk. It's a huge bonus. I love my life here. I love all kinds of things about the country. And I don't have to spend much money to live here, which is just really nice. I mean, the cost of living... when I was in New York City, I mean, the cost of living is absurd. Everybody's working
Ridiculous.
2, 3, 4 jobs just to stay afloat.
Right.
You're spending $2,000 a month on rent for some little, crappy little apartment somewhere. I mean, you couldn't spend $2,000 on rent here if you tried. I mean, there's no such thing. I mean, in Guayaquil and Quito, sure, but like in the rest of the country, there's no such thing as a $2,000 a month rent. In this area, Ryan just made a great video on cost of living. You should check that out on the channel. But in this area, the nicest house you could possibly rent would be like $1,000, $1,200, and that's very rare. Like a high-end house normally here is like $800, like really high-end, and that's in Vilcabamba, which is expensive. So yeah, I mean, life here is it's very inexpensive, and it's just a great bonus. Now, is there a flip side to that? Yes, life is less convenient here, I would say, than back home. But you're talking about life; it's like 10% less convenient and 80% cheaper. So it's well worth it. Really, like the only thing that really jumps out is like you don't have the through the mail ordering. That's very convenient back home. Amazon and those sorts of things. But
really, I mean, stick it to Amazon. Come on down and make it work a different way.
I mean, to be fair, like Ecuador does have a system like Amazon. It doesn't have as much available, and it's a little more like you go to the bank and you pay them in advance. You take a picture of the receipt and they'll send it to you. You got to pick it up at the bus station. Like it's different than Amazon, of course, but you can find quite a bit of things now, especially there's more and more. And then also good to point out, like there are different services just here in Vilcabamba where people actually fly back and forth between the U.S. and here, and usually it's around $10 a pound. So if you get if you get heavy stuff, it'll be very expensive. But if you get things from Amazon, like I need to get shoes in the United States because no shoes fit me in this country, so I always have to order shoes. And in 2 weeks I get a new pair of shoes.
Those tiny feet that you got.
Right.
Little baby feet that you got.
Yeah.
13. They don't have 13 here. I don't know if they have 12 either, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sort of like those inconveniences also, they get solved again once you integrate it in the culture and you figure out how to get stuff done. And then really those inconveniences go away, but the cost of living doesn't. So, that's really nice. Number 9, how skilled people are with their hands, tradespeople, but just in general. It's like, have you ever met an Ecuadorian male that doesn't know how to work on a car? Like, there's no such thing.
right, or building.
Or construction, or agriculture.
Right, exactly. It kind of makes me feel a little less manly in a way. Like
Totally.
every man here knows how to, fix pipes and do electrical and build stuff, and it's like it's almost like whereas back home, like you'd be like a super highly
specialized
person, whereas here just anybody knows how to do these things. So
Right.
And they're happy to help. Like, they're happy to like pitch in and help you with their skills. I mean, I was checking out a hotel in Guayaquil recently, and I had just bought a new car, and they delivered me the car, and then I'm supposed to just like put my stuff in the car and go. And there was a spare tire in the back of the car that under no circumstances was I going to be able to figure out how to put onto the thing that's supposed to hold it that's outside of the car. And without getting that outside of the car, I couldn't get all my stuff in the car. The hotel worker is like, down on his knees under the car, takes like 20, 30 minutes, gets this thing rigged. I mean, I couldn't have done it. You could have given me 6 years to figure this out. Like, I would not have figured it out. He's got the jimmy, and he's got this special hole, and he's getting tools out. I mean, it was unbelievable. Yeah. And they're happy to help you with those things, and they have those skills. It's really cool.
Yeah. A couple things I like. Sorry, Carl. A couple things I like are the two, like the seamstress in town. Like in the States, if I ripped my shirt, oops, it's going in the garbage. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm sure they are around, but I would imagine they're expensive, or I don't know. I just never sought it out. And the shoe repair guy, like, the guy is awesome. You walk in the place and you're like, oh boy, shoes everywhere, and you're like, what's happening? But man, he'll repair any of your shoes and make them wearable again. So I've saved a couple
for a
few
bucks.
A few bucks,
exactly.
$1 or $2, and $6 to $8, and you can get new soles on the bottom. So I've saved a pair of barefoot shoes, and really stoked on that. And yeah, this is my favorite thing about people working with their hands here.
Yeah.
What do you got, Carl?
No, it's electronics also, cell phones, very cheap to get fixed your electronics, broken screens. Like, that could be done back in the US, but here they'll charge you $5-10 to do it. So it's a lot cheaper. Same thing with appliances, fridges, laundry machines, hot water heaters. Like, someone will come to your house and fix it for relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody throws anything out.
That's the thing. Yeah.
It's like I couldn't believe it. We were in Loja when I was living in Loja, and our blender broke, and my wife was like, "Let's go fix it," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, it's broken. Like, you have to throw it out." And she doesn't know what I'm talking about. She's like, "Throw it out!" Like, and she took it to get fixed. It was like $5, and it came back working, and like it was like, "Oh, you don't throw it out, you fix it. Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" And then it also allows you to get things custom made, cheap, which I love. It's like, you can have a sofa made from scratch for $400. It's a nice sofa. You can have a really nice sofa made for $700-800. You can. Years ago I had some suits made, and these are hand tailored suits. They measure you. You pick the fabric. These are, in New York, I mean, these are $2,000 suits, like, easily. It might be more now. I'm talking about 2010 prices. These are $2,000 suits. You have them made here for $200, $300, $400 maybe if you're picking, like, the highest end fabric that exists. And they fit you perfect, and they're just beautiful. You can do this with anything. You could have a grill made. You could have, sort of anything you want. You can have custom made because labor is inexpensive and because people have so much skills, sort of in the trades. It's just really cheap and cost effective and high quality to do them.
I even got my own home gym workout equipment made from scratch. These guys, they build like gym equipment, and they make the weights themselves, and relatively inexpensive and good quality.
Yeah. Good.
Number 10, last one. You made it this far. The medical system. So this might be like weird for people to have on this list, because people think, oh, it's sort of a third world country or an less developed country. For sure, the medical system is not as good as it is in other places. And I don't even know where Ecuador ranks, and people can figure that out. I know it's pretty solid, but I don't know how high it is in the rankings of the medical system here. But there's hospitals everywhere. There's good quality care everywhere. I've had to deal with doctors many times here, and in general I've been really happy with them, like much happier than back home. But what I love about the medical system here is the government is just not involved in healthcare. Essentially, there are public hospitals, and so that is a government thing, and those don't always work that well. But sometimes they do actually. But the private health industry, which is the vast majority of uses in private clinics and private hospitals, the government is essentially not involved. So you don't have lawsuits, you don't have layers of bureaucracy, you don't have all kinds of licensing, you don't have just layers of cost added in. As a result, you're paying market price for everything. Mm-hmm. So an MRI I had done $200, an endoscopy I can't remember if it was $30 or $40. Even if you have to open heart surgery, you're not paying $100,000. You might be paying 20 or 15 or 30 or something, but you're not paying $1 million. You're not going to go bankrupt because of medical bills. And in general, like, the service is fantastic, and just, again, market price for everything. Your average doctor's visit in Loja is like $30. Your follow-up generally is free. It works really well.
Yeah. I haven't used the healthcare system here except for dental work, right? So you can get that done for cheap here. I think a cleaning is $40, and to get cavities filled, it's maybe like $60 a cavity, something like that. And then the other work is maybe $200, $250 or something for a crown or a root canal or those types of services. Implants can be done here as well for cheap, and so a lot of people actually travel here, hang out for a while, get their dental work done, and then go back to the States and save a lot of money.
Yeah, and in terms of the public healthcare system, like, it's not as good quality definitely than the private sector, but there's like what I heard is there's something in the Constitution where they're not allowed to refuse anyone to get treated if you don't have money or if you're not Ecuadorian. So I broke my ankle playing basketball, and I went to the public hospital because I wanted to get an x-ray to see what was happening. And I go in there, they do the x-ray and everything, they give me a prescription thing, and I'm ready to pay like $100. I don't know, but they're like, no, it's free, basically, zero.
Yeah.
Like, go to the pharmacy and buy some anti-inflammatory, and they put a cast on me, all for free. Yeah. So that's pretty amazing for these kinds of things. And it wasn't bad service. Like, it was actually pretty good.
No, you're right. My former business partner almost sliced his finger off once, and we rushed to the emergency room, the public emergency room. They stitched him up, and it was actually a pretty good experience. I shouldn't have been talking crap earlier. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, there we are.
There we go. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Episode 3, Season 2. I should say Season 2, Episode 3, Ecuador Insider Podcast. Our top 10 list, what we love about Ecuador. We will see you next week.
See ya.
All right. Hello. Oh, hold on. Sorry. That's what would have been better, actually, to get that.
Right. No.
Should I get a little shot? Oops. That's the airplane and everything, right?
Get it together, guys.